So metahumans can be pretty performance intensive, especially at LOD 0 and LOD 1. So fortunately, we have full control over that, as we'll see here. So in this module, we're going to learn about how to edit and change the LODs of our metahuman through the blueprint setup. So the reason that we want to manually override the LOD controls in our metahuman blueprint is because the LODs, by default, when Unreal takes care of it automatically, they are very aggressive. So pay attention to the thumbnail at the bottom right-hand corner here as I move the camera further back, like this. And you'll notice that eventually, our groom and all our hair kind of just disappears. And you'll notice that as the camera moves further back, our metahuman starts looking really bad. It doesn't look very good at all. And that's because of LODs. This is entirely intentional. This is by design. But sometimes for some shots, we don't want those LODs to kick in. We want to have a lower LOD. So how do we fix this? So by clicking on our metahuman and hitting the Control-B shortcut, that will bring us to the location of our blueprint in the content browser. Or alternatively, you can navigate to the folder that you know your blueprint is located in, right here. So we're going to open up our blueprint here by double-clicking on it, and you'll see that now we have our metahuman blueprint open. On the top left-hand corner, we're going to scroll down to where it says LOD Sync. And on the right-hand corner, you'll have a series of LOD settings. So first off, we're going to see the total number of LODs. We can leave this at 8. It's not so bad. We can cap this to, let's say, 3, for example. And if we hit the Compile button and move this window out of the way, our metahuman is never going to go past LOD 3. So from a distance, it's always going to look a little bit better. It's not going to be the ridiculously low poly mesh that we find at LOD 8, for example. But in some cases, you just want to keep the lowest LOD, always have a maximum quality at all times. So in order to do that, we can choose the force LOD, but instead of having it to -1, we're going to set this to 0, meaning it's going to use LOD 0, the highest quality version of our metahuman. So hit the Compile button up top here, and now you'll see our metahuman, even at a distance, has all of its groom. It's using the max quality. And now, as we move the camera forward and backwards, we don't see that annoying popping as the mesh changes from one LOD to the other. That is the benefit of using the force LOD. Now, there's another way to access the LOD setting without having to open up the blueprint. So if we click on our metahuman in the viewport, and on the right-hand side in the detail panel, you're going to see the LOD Sync tab right here. Click on this, and you'll see the same LOD setting that we had in the metahuman blueprint. So instead of having the fourth LOD be to 0, I'm going to set it to 2. Now you'll see we lost our beard, and if you remember correctly in an earlier module, and that is because we are using a beard right here that is currently in development and will only be displayed at LOD 0 or 1. So if you force the LOD to LOD 2 and above, you're not going to get any groom or any hair cards at all. So it's important to remember that. It's important to keep that in mind. So I'm going to revert this back to LOD 1, and you'll see right here now our groom comes back and we still have our hair strands showing up. So the grooms themselves are separated in 3 different categories of LODs. First off, we have the grooms, which are actual individual hair strands. Next, at higher LODs, we have hair cards, which are just planes with an alpha texture applied for transparency. So if I go to brush wireframe here, you'll see we have individual cards that form the hair. And lastly, we have what we call the helmet, and that is kind of what the name implies. It's just a hard piece of geo here. It's just one big blob of a model, and that's usually used in situations where you need as few polygons as possible. You're not going to be using this kind of hair for a close-up for obvious reasons. This is usually intended for when your metahuman is very far away, something like this, where you don't actually need to have a crazy high level of detail. This is often more than enough for very distant background characters. So as we can see, metahumans have the option to dynamically and quickly change LOD to allow a wide range of hardware specifications to run them as needed. It should go without saying that LOD 0 is incredibly performance intensive, so you're going to need a higher spec machine to run it at a high frame rate. But that's why we have LODs. If you have a low or mid-range PC, that's fine. You can get the performance you need by choosing a higher LOD level.